Well, all right, folks. Hey, how you doing? This is Bill McGoldrick again, back for episode 8 of McGold-riffs, and I do love that name, Jen. I do love it. Again, I'm going down a different road here. You saw episode 7, hopefully, and I'm really going to be interviewing, jamming, and playing with the best guitar players in Boston. And today I am with none other than Mr. B.J. Knights, one of the top guitar players, most sought-after guitar players in the greater Boston area. He's teaching, he's playing. We're going to talk about everything from guitars to gear. If we get a little geeky, I hope you guys will enjoy that. So, and we'll play some stuff, we'll make up some stuff, and we'll see how that goes. So welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Appreciate you having me.
So let's start at the beginning. Where are you from?
So I grew up not too far from here. I grew up in Mansfield, Mass.
Yep. The Big Green Machine.
You know it.
Yeah, I used to coach Norfolk girls softball for many years.
Okay.
And we would always be playing against the Mansfield team. So.
Absolutely.
So you grew up there.
Yep, grew up in Mansfield.
What are your first recollections of saying, man, guitars are cool?
So
how old were you?
I was probably, it was definitely before I started playing. I would say I was maybe 8 or 10. Thankfully I had parents that were into music. So
really?
from day one, they didn't
supportive the whole way.
Supportive the whole way.
Yeah.
My dad plays a little bit of guitar. I mean, neither of them were professional musicians by any stretch, but both loved music and got me into it pretty much from day. I mean, as I can remember being 3 and 4 years old and dancing around the house and listening to tunes that they had on record. But yeah, I would say it was probably around when I got to be maybe 9 or 10.
Started like 3rd, 4th grade.
Yeah, exactly. Started being more. I listened to a lot of rock and kind of heavier music sometimes back then. But it was that was really what sort of first piqued my interest. I can remember seeing Zakk Wylde playing guitar with Ozzy Osbourne when he first came on board for that gig, and being like that. That's cool.
You know, it's
something
funny about
that
Zakk
that's cool.
Wylde. They just had an article about him in Guitar Player magazine, and just I guess I'm the old guy. I didn't even know who he was.
Yeah, But
that's funny that he was an original influence, and I didn't even know. Who was the guy before him? There was a guy before him Randy Rhoads.
So Randy Rhoads was
he died in an airplane.
Right, yeah. So Randy was a smoking guitar player. They had a guy named Jakey Lee that was in there in between for a little while. But I mean, Ozzy's had a history of having some pretty smoking players. But the first guy I saw was, like I said, late 80s, early 90s was Zakk Wylde. And I didn't even realize it was. I mean, I knew he was playing a guitar, but I didn't know that that's what I wanted to do at that point. It was just, I remember watching that video.
Cool.
Man, that's cool.
And then what? When did you get your first guitar, and what was it?
So my first guitar was it was a black and white Strat copy made by Hohner.
Like a Squire? Oh,
yeah, right. It was made by Hohner, who I think makes harmonicas for the most part.
Do you still have it?
I don't, actually. Yeah. I actually gave that guitar away to somebody at one point, somebody that was looking for a guitar.
Could it stay in tune?
It actually did. It was a reasonably good first guitar, believe it or not.
You know, it's an interesting difference between years ago in the 60s. The lousy guitars back then were unplayable.
Right.
But I think the lousy guitars, I bought recently, because it was there, I walked into a pawn shop, and it was a Squire for $40.
Oh, yeah.
And I gave it to a friend of mine. I did a video and did one of those Hendrix tunes, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, my daughter, I wish I bought that." I just gave it to him. But lousy guitars aren't that bad.
No, they've gotten way better. And I think the fact that my dad played a little guitar helped, because he helped pick up. He got the first one for me. And
so you get that first guitar.
Yep.
What'd you do with it? How did you start? Did you get lessons? Was it YouTube?
So it was way pre YouTube. Yeah. Right. So I was way on the early side of that.
He's an elder millennial.
on the upper end of that too. But it was really almost pre-internet at that point. So it was mostly books and guitar magazines, and I mean, my dad showed me a handful of
like
showed me my
CFG
open chords. Exactly. Gave me the open chords, got me rolling on that. And then it became slightly an obsession, and I would just get every guitar magazine I could get and try to figure out what the tablature meant and what the chord charts meant. And
it's funny because tablature wasn't even around when I was a kid. And I actually learned legit by reading first.
Oh, absolutely.
That's how I started. Yeah. And tablature, I always I didn't like it at first, but now lately I've been teaching a lot lately, and I'm there. Yeah, well,
it's
can
convenient.
Tell you exactly.
It can get right positionally speaking, and how to because obviously we've got a weird instrument here, and there's multiple places to do the same thing. And
right.
So tablature is nice for that, especially from a teaching standpoint, for that reason.
I've talked about this in the earlier one with Lee, that my day, man, we just had the record player.
Yeah.
We just lifted and lifted and
Nothing
lifted.
wrong with that.
And you hoped, that you kind of figured out
Absolutely.
what it was, but you didn't know because you never had any
Of
video.
course, right.
You didn't know if he was further up,
Yep. Exactly.
So that's 10, 11-ish, 12-ish.
Yep. So so my first guitar was for my 13th birthday. So it was still, I think, it's funny, a little late in the game compared to a lot of people.
Just like John, he was about 12 or 13.
Okay.
I was about 10,
Yep.
4th grade with a nun in Alston at St. Anthony's Church. And the first song she taught me.
Nice.
With that, why would you teach that?
Right.
Why would you normally
That's
do
kind of
this,
awesome,
guys,
but
right here. See this? From
Learn
my
some
first
chords.
lesson, see, that's what you do. She was
Teaching to shred a little bit, some
a
tremolo
little,
picking.
Greek kind of thing.
Right?
Yeah, that's Yellowbird if you didn't know
That's
that.
funny.
So 13, a little bit older.
Yep, a little bit
Yeah.
older, and still kind of non-traditional because I really didn't take more than a couple of proper lessons. I went to a local music shop. I had probably played for a year or so first, just trying to, like I said, with what my dad showed me and everything I could steal from magazines. And then I took maybe a month or two of traditional lessons. And
in Mansfield somewhere?
It wasn't in Mansfield, but it was in the area at the time.
Good.
And it sounds terrible, but I just wasn't into it. And it's funny that I ended up teaching, but at the time it just was not
it's your style.
It was. Being a 13-year-old kid, I'm thinking I know everything, and picking up on some guitar stuff on my own. I went, well, I can play this already. I don't want to learn what this guy's showing me. And then in hindsight, it probably would have been a really bright idea to actually pay some attention to those lessons. But so really, the majority of it from 13 to 17 or 18 was trial and error and being self-taught. And
now, high school bands, what were you doing there?
Same thing.
Did you pick up bands at 15, 16?
So I played in...
Most of us do that.
Right, so I played in cover bands and rock bands with buddies. I never did the traditional jazz band or marching band, so I didn't do any proper school bands, which was...
Do you regret that? Do you recommend that?
A little bit, yes. I think there's a lot to be taken out of that, because I have a bunch of students who will play for the band at KP or other local schools around here, and I look at some of the stuff they're playing, I went, it just would have smoked me at that age. I would have been way over my head, so it would have been nice.
Could have gotten you down too, and maybe turn you off.
Exactly, but these guys, they're great players, and they've got the resources, whether it's lessons with me or their teachers that they're working with in school. And I mean, I look at some of these kids, they're 15, 16, 17-year-old, smoking guitar players and good musicians too. The depth of what they're learning is a lot more than where I was at that age. So I would absolutely recommend it if you can hang and you feel like that's something that you're into and it'll keep you going. I would definitely
imagine those high school things. There aren't that many seats.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, when you're thinking about high school jazz,
and especially for guitar, right? Exactly.
It's more elite than maybe football or something.
I would agree, absolutely.
When you think about that.
Yeah, no, and it makes sense. I mean, like I said, when I see some of these kids that are in the jazz band and some of the stuff they're playing, I mean, they're legit players already. Right. They're playing at a really high level.
So you did that. So you did the cover bands in high school.
Yep.
And how'd that go? Did it get popular?
I mean, it was great.
Dances and all that.
Yeah, exactly. We played dances. We played events outdoor concerts on the Common. Those types of things.
Yeah, right.
The first big one I remember playing was like Columbus Park in Boston, like out kind of.
Oh, cool! Right in the North End.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Right next to the North End there, and. I was probably, I don't even know if I could drive to the gig. I was 15 or 16 at the time, and I'm sure we weren't great, but we were, an okay cover band and played all the rock and pop songs at the time, and it was a blast. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I think as far as looking at my path musically, doing that was more, for me personally, was more helpful maybe than doing the school band, just because it got me jumping into what I wanted to do very quickly.
And you learn songs.
Exactly.
And you figure things out.
Yep. You learn how to play with other people really quickly.
And that's we talked about that in the last episode. Getting along with people is half the battle. So you did that, like from the guys and gals from that period of your life. Did anybody pursue music, or were you the only one?
I think from that real early, so I've got buddies that still play in cover bands and do it more as a hobby for fun, which is great
You are
too.
a professional guitar player.
That's what they say.
Right. Okay, cool.
I don't know, but yeah, I mean, this
full-time,
I teach and gig for a
yeah.
living. Yeah,
Right,
so this
right.
is it for me.
And
right
that's
now.
another thing to learn from is that is doable. And again,
is.
like I talked about, John, arts are very difficult.
Yeah.
But today it's probably easier than ever. You can patch different sources of income. You can teach at various places.
Yep.
You can play like you do with multiple different bands.
Exactly.
And that is a doable thing. So anybody doing it at that level from that group?
No, not for. I don't think
Yeah.
so. Not from that.
Same with me.
Some guys
I
that are
was
still
the only guy who
flying.
did.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two,
Right.
in that range. A few of them did.
Yep. Now I've had guys naturally that I've crossed paths with or played in bands with over the years that have gone on to do some much bigger things, but not. I don't think any of the guys from the
Cool.
the initial group that I played with.
So you're like senior in high school,
Yep.
hot shot, guitar
I don't know about
player,
that, but trying to be.
Being cool. Guitar players always, we pretend that we're cool.
Yeah, I'm still working on
So you
that.
didn't do the normal thing, which is go to Berkeley.
I did not.
Why not? Did you look at that? Was that a thought?
It was in the back of my head, and I think part of it was probably a little bit of the self-doubt thing because I didn't have the academic music background.
Right.
I thankfully I always did fairly well in school, but I never took music. I didn't take theory classes. Like we talked about, I wasn't in the
Right.
band, so I don't know that.
Remind me to talk about theory. I want to talk about theory.
Oh, we
We've
can
not
talk about
talked
theory all
that.
day. Absolutely, I'm in
It's
on
really
that.
key, and it's a hidden sort of weapon that I have in my arsenal, along with ear training, that has really helped me quite a bit.
Huge.
So that sort of thing, because Berkeley was very different. When I went to the Berkeley in the early '70s, it was a trade school.
Yeah.
There were like 900 people in. There were 899 guitar players. I think there was one flute player, and that was about it.
Yep.
Only half kidding. It was very different.
Right.
A lot less expensive than it was. So
it.
you're graduating high school late 90s?
I was 99. I
Late
graduated from high
90s?
school.
And again, Berkeley is probably #1 college, music college, at least for contemporary music, in the world today.
Absolutely.
So you're not competing against Boston. You're competing against Argentina. You're competing against the world. So that's a real concern.
Oh, absolutely.
Going that. So
Yep.
you didn't do that sort of thing.
Yep, so I didn't do that.
You went to some other school.
I
you
did.
something, engineering or one of those things.
Yeah, so I went to ultimately sciences were another interest of mine. So I got into biology. I went to Stonehill first,
Sure.
right out of high school,
Right
over in
over here,
Easton.
yeah.
And I was also an athlete, so I played soccer. I got a little bit of money to go to Stonehill to play soccer, which was also a nice incentive.
Wow.
So
Cool.
yeah, so that was cool. But it's really funny. I think that first or second year at school there was really what flipped the switch for me to let me know that I wanted to do music full time.
Right.
That it was, I loved playing soccer. I always enjoyed it, but never felt quite at home at that school. Never felt quite at home with that crowd. It just never quite clicked. And at that same time, I met some buddies that I still play with to this day, and we just started doing acoustic shows and putting bands
I want to
together.
talk about that. Remind me about that,
Yeah,
because
of course.
a lot of folks in your demographic end up being the heavy-duty rock guitar players, and they don't do the acoustic
Right.
thing. So I want to talk about that.
Absolutely.
So did you leave Stonehill? Or?
I did, yeah. So I actually, and I don't recommend you do this, but I got a gig teaching fairly young. I think my first
Teaching guitar
when I was 21. And I said, "Oh, cool! They're going to pay me to play guitar.
Yeah,
I don't need to go to school," which is a terrible idea, again. But it was the right choice for me. It's
Right.
definitely not the path for everybody, but it
So
was
you were pretty young teaching.
Yeah, I said
Yeah.
probably had no business teaching at the time, but it was definitely helped me to learn the craft, learn how to teach, and learn more about guitar.
If there's one thing you probably agree with this. If you want to know whether you really know something or not, try to teach it to somebody.
Oh man, yeah.
And it's,
for sure.
and I'm it's a long story, but I've just started back teaching recently, and realizing I actually have one student, and not to go into a non sequitur
Yeah,
here,
no.
but it's like I have a good right hand,
Yep.
and so I have no idea how I do it.
Right.
I have no idea
Yep.
how that right hand.
Yeah.
And I think we never really learned about up and down much in
Sure.
the 60s when I was learning. Now there's a whole big school. It's like, okay, that's 3 downs, 1 up, and
Right.
divided by an
3
up and
notes
a down.
per string,
It's
and
like,
absolutely.
So really, the teaching thing is an entire thing completely
Yes.
different. So you did that.
Yep.
And you were doing bands.
Yep. Got
in that period of time.
Yeah.
So this is your early 20s.
Yeah, early 2000s, my early 20s. I've got in, like I said, started teaching, and that's been a constant since essentially day one at that point. So I built up my student load, and I was probably at the max, I want to say maybe doing 50, 55 students a week.
No way.
No
way.
Half-hour lessons, not hour lessons.
How
but
do you keep track with what they got to do next
a lot
week?
of records. a lot of little, and
what are the demographics? Were they rock star to bees, or are they 40-year-old guys, or all of the above?
All of the above. At that time, we were talking a little bit before about the difference in how lessons have changed and how music has kind of changed. But in the early 2000s, people really still wanted to play guitar. I mean, that was a big thing. So I had a lot of 12 to 16, 17-year-old boys. That, that was really, really a big part of like me when I started playing guitar. But like all of us really when we started playing guitar. But I had a handful of adult students. I had a handful of girl students. And that's a population that's in a great way exploded. I have far more female students
was
now.
that a Taylor Swift phenomenon?
That was definitely at least
the early 2000s.
Looking in from the outside, that was the first big thing that I think really changed that kind of scene. But yeah, because I had, at that time, it was probably closer to 50-50 male and female students. Maybe still a little more on the maybe 60-40, but I had a ton of younger female students that came in with acoustics and wanted to learn Love Story or whatever, whatever the cool female, like cool Taylor Swift song was at the time. But yeah, so that was it. And these days I still have some female students. I've picked up ukulele is huge. Like that's come onto the scene a lot.
I pick it up once a year.
Yeah, right.
It's really a cool instrument.
I have a decent handful of uke students at this point, and I still mostly guitar, but a lot of adult students too. I'd say probably 30% of my students are.
And let's plug where you
30,
teach.
35, 40 plus. I teach at the Music Box over in Rentham.
Okay, close by to our town here of Norfolk.
Yeah.
And so how many students you said you're doing now?
So right now I'm probably more like 25 or...
And so what's going on? Why are, I'm hearing it from a number of different schools that music in general, not just guitar, but guitar's definitely down on
guitars,
hold.
Yeah. I think it's multifaceted.
Which is hard for me to believe. But, I think,
So we are the old guys now, I think.
Right.
I don't, it is very bizarre, but it's funny. I mean, guitar, when I was 12 or 13, or heck, even 20, it was still, that was the coolest thing you could play. I wanted to be a guitar player. It doesn't resonate with kids the same way. It's kids don't look at least from what I've seen, kids don't look at guitar with the same fire or passion that we would have when we saw it when we were young. And that combined with, I think, the internet and all of the available online lessons, kind of, or tutorials that are out there.
So maybe they teach themselves?
Yeah, I think that does exist, and I think the few that do get into that and want to learn more, then sometimes will come into less. Because I've had that situation where someone will come in and say, oh, I learned these 7 chords, or I learned a couple songs, like I watched, YouTube or Fender Play or whatever the cool new app is that teaches somebody songs, and they're great, but it only gets them so far, and then the people that really want to stick with it will come into lessons. But I think you lose a lot of those beginner students or those initial people that might come in from day one. Right. Yeah.
So what are you working on with people? Because I struggle with this.
Yeah.
I struggle with, I want to learn to play Eddie Van Halen's solo on XYZ, Eruption.
Yep.
And it's like, you don't know the names of the strings.
Right.
So how do you handle that?
It's tough.
Teach this versus, I've picked up, maybe you've done the same thing.
Sure.
I will try to teach someone, and I've never been an exact guitar player. I don't know if you saw the last episode with Paolini. He's one of these guys who can learn the exact.
Gotcha.
I don't want to learn an exact riff. I just don't.
Yeah.
I learn harmonically what a song's doing, and
Sure.
I'm going to play what I want to do, but people want to do the exact thing.
Yep.
Without the basics, the names of the strings, how to tune the guitar, all the different chords,
Yeah.
I actually taught a metal kid once for a short period of time.
Yep.
He was doing all this stuff up here.
Right.
And he didn't, I'm going to stop.
Couldn't play a sequence.
What's that note? What's that note? You got to know the notes, you guys.
Yeah.
So how are you dealing with that?
So, I try to, whenever I meet with any new student, I try to get a rough idea of their background, what they listen to, what made them want to play guitar. And again, if it's an 8-year-old kid, sometimes it's just my parents wanted me to do something, so I'm doing it. But for the most part, usually you've got a band that they like, or a singer that they like, or even if it's a hip hop song or something that's out. I try to get something that musically that they like to work from, so you get that bond right off the bat, and then it makes them at least somewhat interested about, oh man, maybe I can play this song, or they start playing guitar and something comes out that sounds like a song they know, then they get excited. But I try
that's the key, right?
To me, absolutely.
You're going to lose them.
And I think that might have been my own experience,
CFG and without context of the song, I think you lose them.
Nailed it. Because, and like I said, when I started taking lessons, I think that was part of it, because I had a little bit of technique under my belt, and it just wasn't, the lessons didn't inspire me to do something, and I'm going, man, I can do this on my own. So I think what stuck with me from that is that I need to make a connection with the students that I'm working with, and I want them to be excited. I mean, you should be excited. It's guitar. It's awesome. You get to play music. You should be excited about it. So I'll do that, and then I try to work like you said, you've got to know your notes. You've got to learn chords. You've got to know the names of your open strings.
There's some basic grunt work. When you think about a piano, there are white keys and black keys. And if you really look at a piano, and maybe we'll have a video, a graphic of this, but so you have 2 black keys, then a space, and then 3 black keys. Where those 2 black keys are, whenever there are 2, the note right to the left is a C. Guitar, C, 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 C. So it's like a grid.
Yeah, exactly.
And you gotta kind of you need to know.
It's a bizarre instrument the way it's laid out. Yeah, but it's but I agree. You've got to know all that stuff. And for me, I try to work
along with you tick in this song, and then we can go into theory. It's well, okay, so this is a C chord for this song, and then into a.
Exactly.
You can start talking about how
like 1, 6, 4, 5 kind of thing,
sort of thing, which is 99.9% of every song on the radio today has 1, 6, 4, 5, and one amalgamation
some
of
order or the
It's
other.
unfortunate that that's that way these days, but. So tell me, so you're doing that at a fairly young age, and you were doing bands.
Playing
Any bands I knew?
No, nothing that got terribly popular. I played with some guys that went on to later form a band called Boys Like Girls. That was a kind of big pop punk sort of
band.
Did
they get signed?
Yeah, they were huge for a while. I mean, they did international tour, national and international touring for a while. That was for those guys. I want to say maybe like 2007
How can you
or
stay
so.
with them?
We played together. The drummer I have known forever. He's an awesome dude. Like, we grew up together, we went to high school together, and we'd played in some bands later on. And then we just kind of, I think for me, honestly, like, my head was in a different place at the time. And it was just a little bit of a different vibe. At that time, I was really, really, really headstrong into a lot of these shreddy guitar players. Real deep
I forgot about that.
Music.
Influences.
Yeah.
Give me the influences.
So at that,
You said Zakk Wylde you said, whoa, what's that?
So it's funny. I don't know that he ultimately had a whole.
You were a metal guy at the beginning?
Absolutely.
Shredder kind of.
Exactly. Yeah. Not that I had amazing chops, but that's what I wanted to do, and that's what resonated with me musically. So I really, Zakk Wylde, not so much on my playing, but I just remember seeing him first. But I love Marty Friedman from Megadeth. He's one of my.
Article in this month's guitar player on him as well.
Yeah, I saw him he came around doing a not solo, but an instrumental show at Brighton Music Hall not too long ago. It was awesome.
My hometown.
Yep. So I love him. I love Greg Howe, who's another kind of fusion instrument. Oh, you got to check him out. So I actually was lucky enough to take lessons with him a little later in my career.
Let me interrupt there.
Yeah.
All these major guitar players. John Harrington is one of my favorites. He's the guitar player in Steely Dan.
Yeah.
He teaches in New York.
Right.
You pretty much almost anyone other than Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
You can get lessons. I mean, they're probably $500 an hour, or something like that. So more influences.
Yeah. So
any of the old guys, the Claptons, any of that stuff.
I love all that stuff. If I'm being honest, I don't know that it influenced me playing wise so much, because I was such a 80s rock guy when I started playing music, but I mean all the big ones. I loved Sabbath. I mean Tony Iommi. Because that was a little more metal. I think that was more in my wheelhouse when I started playing.
What do you consider yourself now?
Oh gosh.
Country guitar player, blues guitar player,
a train
rock
wreck?
guitar player?
No, I do a little bit of it. I would say blues rock guitar player,
Right.
if I had to put a generic thing on it.
Know what I say about myself? Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you want a waltz? That's not a waltz.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, so, rock,
Yeah,
I tend
absolutely.
to be that sort of guy that, what do they want?
Yeah,
And what are they going to pay me to do?
I know that. I am with you 100% on that.
So, the influences. So,
Yep.
now tell me about, so you were doing that all these years.
Yep.
And then you did this bizarre thing and moved to Nashville.
There you go.
Nashville
Yes.
T-shirt on today.
Yep.
Tell me about that. Why'd you do it? And tell me about the country band that you were playing.
Yeah, so it's funny because I was not by no means a country guy. That was probably
Neither
the
am I, but
farthest
I can fake it.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are that way. It's
Yeah, I could fake it until I got to Nashville. And then,
Yeah, there's some guys. I mean, if you watch a Brad Paisley,
Oh.
I mean, you just see what he can do with this Telecaster. It's like,
Yeah.
wow.
And some of the, I mean, there's smoke guys like Guthrie Trapp and Brent Mason and guys down. There's this whole crew of guys that are
So you
phenomenal.
moved down there, which takes a lot of courage. And you were a kid when you did it.
I did.
I
I had
years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago. So I was married, and I still am married.
Right,
but I was
right.
married. I had my one child at the time,
Right.
and my wife was super cool about it. And for me, it was not so much Nashville in particular that I had any. Like I said, I didn't have a country background, so I wasn't going specifically because I was dying to play country guitar. But it was one of the few places I felt like you could make a living playing full time, and it is, which was awesome. So went in there cold. I knew a couple people who had moved there at different times over the years, but I didn't really have any connections, and I got a little one-bedroom apartment at first, and I actually went
With
down.
all you guys in there.
So I went for about 2 months before my family came down, just to see. So I would come back and forth, but just to make sure I could even get, because I didn't know. I said maybe I won't even get any work,
Yeah,
So
right.
I spent about 2 months down there, like I said, in this tiny one-bedroom apartment, and every night I went out and went to different clubs and tried to meet people and looked for auditions.
What was that
And when they
like?
popped, daunting.
Right, because everybody's a guitar.
And
It's
everybody's
gotta be
good.
worse than Berkeley.
Yeah, it kind of is, and everybody.
And they're all pretty good.
They're all doing the same
I've gone
thing,
down
too.
there a couple of times. I played in NAMM in 2014.
Yeah.
I was invited to NAMM.
Yep.
And I actually get to play with Ingrid Andress.
Oh, cool.
Ingrid is now signed by Warner and traveling all over Europe. And she's the next big thing, was on the Today Show. But she and I did the NAMM convention.
Yeah.
I came in on a Wednesday night. I played on Thursday, Wednesday night. But I stayed at the Sheraton right near the Country Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And didn't know anything, so I walked on Broadway.
Right.
And it was unbelievable band, followed by, and there were 100 bars up and down. Better band, the best band.
Yeah.
No, these guys are better.
Yep.
And you go across the street. On the last one, that is a big one, I think. I forget the name of it. Had 3 floors, 3 bands playing. I don't know, 5 or 6 sets. No. There's 3 bands on 3 floors, and each band got like 2 or 3 hours, starting at noon till like 2 in the morning.
Yep, exactly.
And they have all the backline stuff.
Yep.
You just bring your guitar and a
walk
pedal
in, and
board.
if you want a board, yeah, exactly. Just
Yeah.
a lot of the
I
places.
mean, good is not. And there are people playing in the street
Yeah.
who are just as good. The Dixie Chicks have a great song about that, playing on Broadway. So you did that.
Yep.
And you got with a country band.
Yep.
You hooked on with them.
Yep.
And how'd that go?
It was fantastic.
Did you travel with them? You've toured.
Yep.
Nationally, right?
Yep, exactly. So we, the woman's name is Lauren Ashley. She's a female country
I
artist.
follow
She's
her,
great.
yeah.
It's called Lauren Ashley and the Trainwreckers, and
Yeah.
it was great. I played with them for probably two and a half. I did a lot of other sideman work too,
And so
but
your
that
wife
was
came down with your kid. And
Yep, exactly. So they all moved down, and so we brought the whole family down. Like I said, I was on the road with those guys. I went all over the place, really. And actually, it was a separate gig from them, but I got flown to Alaska for a week to go play
cool.
out there. So it's just got to see stuff
When
I
you
would
do that
never
sort of thing,
otherwise.
do you bring the amp, or because
That
it
one
costs
was
a lot of money to?
That one was
ship that.
backline. So yeah, I brought a guitar on
Yeah.
the plane with me.
And that's always tough. I don't know if you know this. My claim to fame is I played with the Platters. And,
Nice.
And it was cool. I got to do some really cool
Yeah.
gigs. I went to Hong Kong with them and played with them
Yep.
in Hong Kong, and I brought picks.
Yeah.
I didn't bring a guitar.
That's awesome.
Did not bring it.
That's
so I said,
fantastic.
give me a Les Paul or Strat or
I need
Twin
that
Reverb.
gig.
And it was pretty cool.
That's
but,
great.
So you did that sort of thing.
Yep.
And where is she at these days? Is she signed or?
No, I think she's still playing a little bit down there. We're friends. We stay in touch and chat, but for the last year or so, I haven't been down there too much.
Right. So you wanted to come back here to home base.
Yeah, exactly. We had a second child, and my wife's family's all up here. Most of my family is up here. So after a while,
and you got a third one coming along.
Third
guitar player.
Yeah, exactly.
I
got a band coming. Yep, exactly.
It's man to man when you get two kids. For defensive.
That's what I'm told.
Then you got to go to zone.
Yep.
When you got 3 kids.
Exactly.
So it's and how old's your oldest?
So he's 5.
Okay, so he's too young to be playing guitar.
Yeah, basically every time I pick it up, he goes, "Dad, put that down. I want to come play with me instead."
Right. So you came back here.
Yep.
You're playing with a great band by the name of Bell Bottoms.
Yep,
right?
I play with those guys. Yep.
And I watched a bunch of videos. That's real rock and roll.
Yeah, that's like
it's a 5-piece.
Yep. Exactly.
You do most of the leads. You have another.
There's another guitar player named Dave. It's
yeah.
great. Yeah, we trade off on a lot of stuff. So we both play lead, but we pretty much split it down the middle.
Yep.
And it's cool because we have kind of slightly different styles, which is good. Some songs are awesome for him, and some songs work for me. But yeah, that's a fantastic.
And
band.
the lead singer seems very good.
Oh, he's smoking. He's a killer. Yeah,
and
he's
that's
a
the
killer.
hardest thing to get sometimes these days is get somebody who can really do it.
He's strong. He's got
a hitter guy. I like.
Yeah.
That.
Oh, it's
2 and 4. Boom,
Yep.
2, 4.
And for that stuff, that's what you need. You just need somebody holding it down back there.
So how's it going with that? And what else are you doing right now? What are your goals, aspirations?
Yeah. So
and right now as a guitar player.
I mean, I always like to play as much as I possibly can. I mean, that's.
I'm the same way, man.
And I mean, you know how it is. We've got to make some money doing it too. So it's got to be worthwhile gigs. But I mean, this past week I played Thursday, Friday, had a rehearsal Saturday, had a gig Saturday night, and then I played Sunday. So it's that's a busy week. But so I'm looking for as much as I can. I'm always playing, but I do a lot of sub work. Like I said, I play with Bell Bottom. I play with those guys on a regular basis.
Are you subbing with them, or are you in that?
No,
band?
I play with that band.
Okay. There's a sort of a criteria. I don't know if it's a criteria, but I do a lot of subbing as well. But being in a band is an official sort of thing. And how does that work with your acoustic gigs? What takes precedence? In other words, if you have an acoustic gig on this 3 Fridays from now, and you say, "Hey, we just got a gig for that Friday too."
Yeah.
What do you do?
So generally, it's kind of first come, first serve, and the guys in the band, they're all cool about that.
And that's a difference between when I was in the 70s and 80s. You were expecting in bands to just be available,
right?
And it's very different. I played with Pam Stiebler, if you remember Pam.
I remember Pam.
Pam's down in New York. She's got a couple albums, and she was great. And I got a taste for what the young people's world is, and she told me it's like. She had a bunch of kids she graduated Berkeley with, and her feeling was you never know which one's going to do it.
Right.
So you just spread it out, and hey, maybe I'm the lead singer who gets signed, or maybe I'm the backup singer who gets signed.
Absolutely.
So it's first come, first serve. And what do they do? Do they get upset?
No, honestly, they're all really good guys, and I think some of the other guys have some other projects too, and some of the guys are married and have kids. You know how that goes. So it is a full-time band in the sense that we've got a core of guys that play together, but they're not looking to play every week.
Right, if you get 12 months, most bands I'm seeing, if you get 24, 2 a month, that's a lot.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And
these days.
Yeah, and just because of all of our schedules, I mean, they're maybe doing 6 to 8 times a year.
So they probably know well in advance?
Yeah, exactly. And we try to book them out. And, I will give precedence to that if I can. But like I said, if I have something else booked, because I'm getting my hands in a million different
So tell
things.
me about goals, aspirations. I think we got, about 5 minutes? Something like that? About 6 minutes or so, we're going to jam out on something. But goals, aspirations here right now.
Yep.
And first, talk about your acoustic act and what it is, because I think you go out as a duo sometimes.
Yep.
And he's got a great voice, by the way, which
I don't know about
I'm
that.
very envious of, because I have a horrible voice. So but which allows me, luckily, to work with the best female vocalist in Boston,
which is a good thing.
Which is a blast. So tell me about the acoustic thing.
Yeah, so it's for a long. I played in an acoustic duo, still do actually, called Mayberry, with a good buddy of mine. His name's Rob Bowers. We played for best man at my wedding. I've known him since college. So that we always did that, and we kind of. He tends to sing a little bit more, but I would pick up some songs here and there. And then as we both got busy and started doing other things, I found it. I'm sort of a reluctant frontman. I'll do it
Me
when,
too. Most of real lead guitar type,
right?
We just didn't have it to be Robert Plant.
Exactly.
But we wanted to be Jimmy Page.
Right.
But we needed that person out front who's got that sort. You're born with that persona who can do that. Roger Daltrey or whatever those.
I'm not that
are.
guy for sure.
I'm not either. But I'd like to get a minute for that solo, and then I'm back.
Yes, I'm with you 100% on that.
But now you're doing solo, which takes a lot of courage.
It was a little tough to get into.
You
but
play Chieftain over there in Plainville.
Right? Yep. Played Chieftain pretty often. A handful of places around here. But yeah, for me, it was almost out of necessity. There were nights that I wasn't playing, or nights that somebody wouldn't be available, and I would sing a couple songs in a night. But I'm going, well, maybe I should try it.
So you got 40, 50 tunes? Yeah,
exactly.
Nail
exactly. Yep. So I got basically 3 hours plus worth of stuff that I can pull out. Recently started doing kind of like what you do. I started playing with a female singer, a fantastic.
Oh, I've seen that with her.
Yep. And she's awesome. So we've been trying to push that a little bit more too. Mm-hmm. But basically, I like having the flexibility to do the solo thing, so that if a gig pops up, I don't have to wait on somebody else's schedule. I can book it and take
and to young guitar players out there, the more you can do, the better off.
Yeah. Learn how to sing harmonies.
Ukulele, harmonies. If you can play uke, if you can pick up some banjo, especially in that country world.
Yeah.
There's a world of what they call a utility ball player who can really. The more you can do, the more that you will get.
Played a country gig last weekend with a killer utility guy. He was on fiddle. He was on steel. He played a bunch. It was awesome. He was really good.
So what else? What else is going on?
That's it. Really, the acoustic thing's kind of been taking precedence, just because, like I said, I can book some gigs myself. I've got another that great female singer that I'm playing with. I still love doing the full band thing, but it just seems to be less of those gigs popping up right now. And I love teaching, so that's the other thing I'm doing a ton of. I do. Like I said, I do some Skype lessons, so I have a couple guys that I do online lessons with.
That's a new thing, too.
Yeah, which is a cool thing. I teach a ton at the Music Box, so I do that. Cool. I do some private lessons. So, for me, I'm just really pushing the lesson thing and trying to pick up as many gigs as I can.
Cool. So why don't you tell people how they can get a hold of you and like YouTube and Facebook and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And where you teach again.
Yeah, so again, I teach, if you're local, I teach at the Music Box in Rentham. But you can find me, it's just my name is my website. It's bjnights.com, so KNIGHTS on the end. That's probably the best spot because it's got a little bit of everything. It's got links to videos. It's got a bio. It's got my gigs coming up. So yeah, I would say bjnights.com, or if you're into Facebook or Instagram or any of that, you can find me out there too.
Cool. So I think that's it. We'll wrap up here and we'll just jam out on A minor to D7/9 for you geeks out there.
Sounds good.
And All right.